Welcome, everyone. I am just thrilled to be joined by President Peter Hans of the UNC system, President Thomas Stith of the North Carolina Community College system, and Superintendent Catherine Truitt of the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. Three amazing leaders. Welcome them, please. We're going to get to the heavy topic of COVID and mental health in a moment, but I want to step back first and address some other really important issues. It is in some ways both an exciting and daunting moment to be leading education in North Carolina. The state's economic development plan touts the promise that we will be first in talent. Our legislature has codified a goal of 2 million people with post-secondary credentials, which could be a degree or a certificate, by 2030. And yet, COVID-19, which apparently has zero respect for our state plans, has caused us to take some steps back. I want to talk a little bit about enrollment and learning loss to begin with. You heard Scholar talk about her circumstance, essentially finishing one degree and starting on another one in her car. Let's start with you, Superintendent Truitt. What keeps you up at night when you're thinking about what COVID has meant to student achievement, to proficiency, to the potential for growth over the last 18 months?
What keeps me up at night is the fact that pre-pandemic, only 67% of our students were not reading proficiently when they started 9th grade. And that same statistic holds true for math. We had decades-long challenges in our state that are actually not dissimilar from the rest of the United States that have been exacerbated by the pandemic. And we absolutely must be laser focused on preparing students to read before they reach the 3rd grade. And I do believe that thanks to federal dollars, thanks to the legislature and the governor's office and the Department of Public Instruction, we are well on our way to correcting that. We're partnering with both the Community College System Office and the UNC system to ensure that our pre-service teachers are getting what they need to not just help students recover from the pandemic, but also to help them be even better teachers, instructors, and yes, even mental health professionals when they graduate and come into the classroom.
Are you worried about how many students are opting out? I think in 2021, we probably have a better sense of where students are literally, but in 2020, there were any number of students that were they had just fallen between the cracks.
Yes, that's right. Many of our teenagers stopped out altogether and got jobs. And students also, even if they stayed in school, they doubled down on work and perhaps spent less time participating in online learning and more time in the workplace. We also know that many students perhaps left the state to go and live with family members elsewhere because parents were having to choose between working and staying at home. And so, yes, I think that our districts are working hard to find those students and to even more re-engage, especially our teenagers in their K-12 education experience.
President Stith, you're seeing some of the same issues. Many community college students fail to re-enroll. Say a little bit about what that means and how we respond to that with, as someone said in the earlier panel, a sense of urgency.
Certainly. And Anita, as you know, across the country, the community college systems in general saw about 11% decline in enrollment. We were not immune to that. We had a little slightly less decline in our enrollment here in the state. But what is very encouraging to me as we look at at least the fall preliminary numbers, we see an uptick in our enrollment. So we feel very good about that. And that doesn't happen by chance. We have had several initiatives, certainly through this continuing pandemic. There's been utilization of federal recovery funds to support our students, both financially and services, wraparound services, support for staff development. As Superintendent Truitt mentioned, we've been very collaborative with our university system, signing historic collaboration agreements. We say articulation agreements, but sometimes folks say, what is articulation agreement? But with the university.
It is a very insider.
It is a very inside term, but it's a collaborative effort to ensure that there's a seamless pathway in specific with teachers that want to, individuals that want to pursue a teaching career. They start off at a community college for 2 years, seamless transfer to our university system. So we're very proud of that, working with our K through 12 system, with career coaches, embedding individuals in high schools to help students understand the benefits of the community college system. Most recently, North Carolina was designated only one of 6 states to receive a REACH grant, which focuses on, in particular, our men of color in targeting high value credentials that adult learner. We know how important our adult learners are now. The system has had strategic enrollment teams that work with our community colleges, and so we're seeing the results of that when we look at our fall preliminary numbers, yes, but we think we have the momentum as we move forward. You know, when you look at the last year-end numbers, there were 1.7 million individuals that either from a credential to a 4-year associates that participated in the community college system. That's $60 billion worth of wage earners. So the community college system is a key, not only academically in our state, but economically. And as we say, we feel very strongly that we're the first choice for affordable and accessible education in North Carolina. And as we work through this pandemic, we're seeing the results of that with our fall numbers. And we continue to partner with our nonprofit partners. We have several colleges participating in a pilot, again, focusing on adult learners with the Belk Endowment, and 5 or 6 of our community colleges. So we think we have a very comprehensive approach, whether you're a newly minted high school student or an individual that has been displaced because of the pandemic. There's an opportunity within the community college system, a pathway for not only educational excellence, but to find economic opportunity, whether it's a job or utilizing our small business centers to start a small business. We know that just by the preliminary numbers will be a key as we recover and build after this pandemic.
I want to stick with this topic of adult learners for a second. Obviously, the pandemic wreaked havoc on many people's livelihoods. They either lost their jobs or they had to step out of their jobs for dependent care. Now, some of these people are having a very hard time re-engaging in the labor market, in part because skill sets are forever changing, as we heard in the first panel. So President Hans, can you say a little bit about the UNC system's approach to adult learners, and particularly, I wish I could say in the wake of the pandemic, but maybe at the tail end of the pandemic, what are you doing?
Yeah. Dr. Brown-Graham, first of all, thanks for organizing this and your leadership with ncIMPACT. Great work. Historically, the community colleges have done a fantastic job with adult learners, particularly in the areas of workforce training, vocational education, and continue to do so. The UNC system has been content to focus on their traditional demographic of 18 to 24-year-olds. And that's understandable and appreciated. However, I think we've let down adult learners in our state. And if we're going to achieve the My Future NC goal, 2 million more credentials by 2030, we've got to do more there. I think everyone deserves a second chance People who are 18 to 20 years old don't necessarily know what they're going to do with the rest of their lives. The economy is changing so rapidly. They will need new skills, new basis of knowledge as they grow older. And so after the first of the year, and once the state budget is announced or signed, we'll be announcing a major adult learner initiative in order to reach particularly those 1 million North Carolinians with some college but no degree, to help them complete their 4-year degree. Those North Carolinians need flexible opportunities that allow them to stay in their home communities. I think really, college should be rigorous and challenging, but the journey to college, it should be warm and inviting. Sometimes we get the two confused. We're going to step up. We're going to step up at UNC in supporting our adult learners complete their 4-year degrees.
That is really, really exciting. Thank you for sharing. Superintendent Truitt, you started to talk about the opportunities that exist, some in part by the infusion of federal investment into the recovery from COVID. As you think about ARPA and whatever else may come, let's get specific on how those funds might be utilized. And I want each of you to answer that question, how those funds might be utilized to really hurry history along.
So I've mentioned already that the training for all of our pre-K through 5th grade teachers, as well as elementary school administrators, that groups have already started in our state to undergo, is being paid for with those federal dollars. 90% of those dollars go directly to the districts. And so we all know that we have 115 different school districts plus over 200 charter schools. And each district is different from the one next to it. And so I created the Office of Learning, Recovery, and Acceleration to be really an aid to our 115 districts to help come alongside, help those districts who might need some help meeting their students where they are in order to be the best stewards of that money as possible. And so that may be workforce development in one county, it might be mental health services in another county, but what we do know is that we must collaborate. That's a word we've heard a lot today, and we must also not look to the past. We must look forward. And one of the things that I'm really excited about, because I know we're going to talk about mental health, is the idea of telehealth in our K-12 schools. We've been running pilots in a couple of counties already, and we've seen not just better physical and mental health, but we've seen chronic absenteeism decrease considerably in some of our smaller, low-wealth counties. And so really the possibilities are endless.
I like that idea of not looking to the past, looking forward, and collaborate happens to be one of my most favorite words, so we're good there. President Stith, what will you do with these investments? How will you?
Well, we're already doing that, and I see we're seeing some of the results of it. As Superintendent Truitt mentioned, there was a significant amount of federal funds that were distributed directly to our 58 colleges across the state. They were able to utilize that not only in helping, in some cases, with financial support, but also those wraparound services that I mentioned, because as President Hans mentioned, we have a different demographic in many instances. So it's an older, an adult learner that transportation is an issue, childcare may be an issue. So those funds have been utilized at the local college for those type of initiatives. But when and also tied to our enrollment initiatives, twofold. One, through the governor's office, there was a long leave commitment around a $25 million fund that was targeted toward our most recent high school graduates. And that was specifically to ensure that new learner had an opportunity in many cases to attend a community college avoiding tuition and fees. Prior to that, there was a $15 million fund utilizing federal funds through the governor's office for short-term workforce training. Because as I mentioned, there are many individuals that don't have the opportunity to measure their educational travel, if you please, in years, but in months and in weeks. So we were able to utilize that GEAR funding, another acronym. It wouldn't be an education show if we didn't have a few acronyms.
I think only healthcare has more acronyms.
Yeah, we'll have a duel one day to see who has the most acronyms. But that was geared specifically for short-term workforce training to provide those credentials to make those individuals immediately competitive. And we understand and I like the way Peter mentions when we have a passage of a state budget, I like that affirmative thought, and that we understand also.
Can we all just cross our fingers?
We'll have a short prayer, right? That we understand there may be some additional funding within the state budget targeting, once again, that learner that may need that additional financial assistance. So when you talk about federal funding, significant amount already through the beginning and through the pandemic. State funding as well, we believe, will be available. So I think the strategies are being implemented literally now, at least within the community college system, and we feel we're seeing those results as we speak, in particular as we look at fall and move toward the spring enrollment, which opens literally now.
I love hearing both of you say we're making these investments and already we're beginning to see the return on the investment. That certainly makes me very hopeful. Now the pressure's on President Hans.
Oof,
Make
okay,
us more hopeful.
That's the difficulty of going third here. The federal relief funds provided to the university, half were allocated by Congress directly to student financial aid to support them in that period of difficulty, and chance for a number of student debts actually to be wiped clean. So positive outcomes there. The other half directly to our institutions, but as president of the system, I directed our 16 universities to think strategically about the usage of those funds in 4 specific areas. First of all, of course, public health. We needed to keep our campus communities as safe as possible during the pandemic. Secondly, to shore back up our fiscal condition, because our receipt-supported, self-supporting enterprises that the university runs, like housing and dining and transportation, they lost a lot of revenue in the course of the pandemic. We needed to shore up their financial position so those costs were not ultimately passed along to students and their families. Third, mental health. The toll of the pandemic on mental health has been tremendous. We wanted to direct resources in that area. Fourth, let's accelerate student achievement. And I'm pleased to report, like my colleagues, we're seeing positive benefits from this thus far, because it really summarizes everything that we're trying to accomplish, which is to graduate more students on time with less debt and at lower costs with better post-graduation opportunities. If we can maintain that focus on access and affordability and quality, imagine the impact on North Carolina in the years to come.
I'm looking forward to the impact on North Carolina in years to come. Questions from the audience? If you've got questions, I invite you to make your way to the microphone. And while you are doing that, I will ask another question to give you some time to get up there. You all have talked a lot about collaboration, and it certainly seems to be increasing among the systems, or maybe I'm just reading more press releases. Looks like it's increasing to me. Examples include our teacher preparation degrees at community colleges, seamless transfer to the UNC system. Are there other examples of collaboration that you are particularly proud of? And I'll let you go first this time.
Okay, the pressure's on you. There you go. You know, Anita, it helps that the three of us are friends and we've worked together in previous lives, and there's a lot of trust and support between us. But yes, I think that is real, more collaboration. While I was at the community college system, we started the effort towards a 2-year associate degree in teacher preparation. President Stith has taken that, elevated it. I'm excited about what that may mean for the supply of well-qualified teachers in the future, particularly those that can stay in their local communities, rural areas coming to mind in particular. Very much focused on the establishment of a common course numbering system for about 180 entry-level courses within the university that will help community college transfer students and students transferring within the university itself.
That's huge.
Yeah, it amounts to about 1/3 of our student population will transfer at one point or another, saving them time and money and keeping them on track towards graduation. So wonderful collaboration there. Superintendent Truitt and I trying to improve certainly our early literacy efforts. Our schools of education have a responsibility to do their part as the single largest provider of North Carolina public school teachers. And we're very much on the same page about the science of reading and applying best practices, because I think we all feel the fierce urgency of now when it comes to early grade reading proficiency. And North Carolina's not where it needs to be.
Well, we are certainly going to do something about that 67% of students entering 9th grade not on reading level. That's just not acceptable.
Unacceptable.
Yes.
Question.
Yes, one of the previous panelists mentioned that there was a little bit of challenge in understanding the importance of community college for high school students. So I think the collaboration that you all have mentioned that you have is going to be vital. But I wanted to ask specifically, what is being done to kind of demystify the stigmas attached to high school students understanding the enrollment and considering community colleges as a viable option?
Excellent question, and if you've been in the room with me, you've probably heard it too often. And it's you hear many times people say that the North Carolina Community College system is the best kept secret in North Carolina, and they say that as a compliment, but I don't take it as such because of the excellent opportunities that exist within our community college system. As I mentioned earlier, whether you're a high school student that wants to matriculate and potentially participate in our university system, from an accessibility and affordability, when we speak about our articulation agreement or our collaboration agreement with the university system, if you want to become a teacher, as an example, those first 2 years on average are 1/3 of the cost. And I'll say that again, 1/3 of the cost if you start off at one of our community college system and then go on to our excellent 4-year institutions. As a high school student, there's an initiative, and they may have spoken about this already, dual enrollment. As a high school student, you're taking high school courses. You're also taking community college courses, earning college credits, and that is no cost to that student. So again, the affordable nature, but at the same time, those courses are transferring seamlessly to our 4-year institutions. So you're getting an excellent education, as you so not only demystifying, but helping students realize that it is an excellent education and it is a pathway to success. So those are 2 areas, whether you're on a transfer path or whether you want a 2-year degree. When you look at some of the IT jobs that are available or in healthcare, I have individuals that are going through the community college system. They're going into the biotechnology industry. They're soon making $65,000, $70,000 coming out of a 2-year institution, and within a few years, maybe making over $100,000. And I'm a proud Eagle. I'm a North Carolina Central grad, product of the university system. But I also know there's challenges at this time in our economy. So that's what the community college system provides to address those challenges, provide viable, highly sought after skills, whether it's a credential or a 2-year degree, and providing that pathway to the tremendous amount of jobs that exist in North Carolina in biotechnology and IT in our healthcare field and our traditional trades. And if you call a plumber or electrician lately, you'll realize that's a very viable career. I had the former student tell a president in Western North Carolina, how do you become a millionaire? And you go to a community college and become a plumber. And this was a literal case. The individual did that for a couple of years, and then he started his own plumbing business, hired 6 or 7 plumbers. Now he has a multi-million-dollar firm. So entrepreneurship is not everyone's pathway, but the community college system for high school students, for our adult learners, is clearly a pathway to success. And it's on really all of us to amplify that message, to ensure that because of the vibrant economic system in North Carolina and the educational opportunities that are available, there are many choices for our students in North Carolina.
Amen.
Next question. Well, one of the things that it seems to me we will see in the future because of all of this collaboration, a lot more entry ramps. So one of the statistics I really like are how many people actually have a four-year degree who then go into community college to get some sort of certificate that enhances that four-year degree. And so I think as people understand that you are putting together a jigsaw puzzle in this lifelong learning, you'll see all different types of models emerging. Yeah.
That's right.
Question.
Yes, I have a question specific to expanding access to education and the adult learning initiatives you all were talking about. So we've been talking about the pandemic's impact, and obviously the incarcerated population wasn't spared from these impacts. And currently I work as a virtual prison writing coach through the School of Government, helping edit some papers for incarcerated students who are taking UNC courses now. And I'm encouraged by that partnership, but there's always room to grow, And I think my question is, how do you see system-involved people, be it those who are currently incarcerated, those on parole, or anyone who is otherwise situated on the margins of society, fitting into your initiatives to increase adult learning?
Yeah, and certainly President Hans can address as well, but we have a very robust system, and as you probably know, since it sounds like you're very involved in it, with our community college system and those individuals within the system that need that opportunity, need that training, whether it's basic education, completing their high school degree, or preparing to re-enter society and providing a viable trade or skill or degree for them. So our community colleges are very engaged. The pandemic was a bit challenging because as in other areas, while our campuses remained open, many of our facilities across the state were closed at one point. So now we're seeing them reopen, and our instructors are able to re-enter and re-engage with the population to prepare individuals for viable careers once they exit. But,
No,
Peter,
well,
please.
that's so true. The community colleges do amazing work in this space and are charged by the state with exactly that. I'd like to see how we could be more supportive of that. You're exactly right about viable skills, trades that you might learn, because they will re-enter society, and we want them to have a productive path and opportunity at a second chance. And that will benefit all of us.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, my name is Paula Edelson. I'm a educational content producer at PBS North Carolina. And my question is for Superintendent Truitt. I appreciated the percentage that you cited on lack of reading before the pandemic even. And I think it's around 45% of third graders before the pandemic who had not passed literacy tests. I know that you've taken great strides with the science of reading. I'm wondering about the role of a social emotional domain, so-called, well, it is called trauma, whether that's going to affect the curricular strategy for this, and also what kind of a burden or lack thereof that might place on teachers. That's my question.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. So teachers are under an enormous amount of stress right now. Their own mental health, as with those in the medical community, has really been under siege, and they're not out the other end yet. And so we're very cognizant, not just about our students' mental health needs, but also our teachers. Social emotional learning, which starts with a kindergartner experience and goes all the way through the 12th grade, is something that each district implements the way it sees fit. But primarily, it is the idea that when students are young, they start with learning about self-control, handling their emotions, forming positive relationships, having self-respect. And then as students get older, really strong social emotional learning programs tie that into what is going to happen after high school. What does a student need in order to be workforce ready from a social emotional learning standpoint? Because as our previous panelists indicated, it's not just about academics. And so we can tie social emotional learning skills to things like looking someone in the eye when you go to an interview, wearing the appropriate attire to an interview, being on time for the interview. I mean, things that may seem like common sense to adults are not always common sense to 18-year-olds. And so the ideal social emotional learning curriculum is not a bolt-on, not something that is added on. It's something that's infused throughout the day. And so it becomes part of the curriculum. And so as teachers are learning to, again, infuse that into what they do every day, students are definitely the winners.
Terrific, thank you. We'll take one more question.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to answer my question. And Superintendent Truitt, you already started touching on it as a former kindergarten teacher. Thank you for that. And mine does go back to that mental health need. And it is often the case, and it tends to continue to be the case, that we're very reactive when it comes to mental health. And I've often thought, when I was in the classroom and even now, we do a lot of preventative and pre-screenings for physical health. Do we ever think there's going to be a mental health screening for our students that's universal, maybe perhaps in middle school or in 5th grade?
Yeah, so I totally agree with you, and it reminds me of the mental health screenings that the military does when students are, when new cadets or sailors, what have you, enter the military. There must be a mental health screening. We're not doing mental health screenings in a formal, systemic way across our state. What I would say is that we do a lot of kind of first-tier, surface-level work with mental health. And then I think we don't really have comprehensive second and third-tier interventions. I was happy to see mention of the mental health first aid training that has come to higher education. I remember taking that training a few years ago, and we certainly are making it more widespread for teachers. But what I have to say to you and to all of our teachers is that our public K-12 schools are not a long-term solution for mental health challenges for our students. And to that end, we must find a way to grow our pipeline of professional school psychologists so that they are part of a school's everyday experience. If I waved a wand and gave our districts the money to do that, we wouldn't have those people to hire. We need to attract them to North Carolina. We actually have started to look at how we can do that. How can we build that pipeline? Can we do tuition reimbursement for those who need to do their clinical hours? That's a standard number of hours that these students need to do before they can become school psychologists. Can we get more social workers into our more rural areas where we may not have social workers? But as the expression goes, something's got to give. We cannot expect our teachers to continue to do more and more of those non-teaching duties and responsibilities, like giving insulin shots, like taking care of mental health needs for middle schoolers. We've got to do a better job supporting our teachers with those extra school support personnel.
Yes, so I want to give both President Hans and President Stith an opportunity to end talking about what else we need to do with respect to mental health. So go for it.
Well, the superintendent said it very well. This is a societal issue about how we address mental health, and clearly we're seeing a disproportionate impact on young people right now. They haven't necessarily had the chance to build the resiliency through the trials of what we've just been through. Here's a little bit about what we're doing. You saw in the piece, of course, the governor provided us with funding to prepare 10,000 people for that first aid mental health training, and very proud of that. The university system is also leading in the sense of establishing a system-wide, statewide telehealth platform for all of our students. It's available 24/7, all day, all night, all week, all month, all year. It's receiving quite a volume of interaction with our students, which is good and bad.
Right.
But I'm told it's the only system-wide, statewide approach in the country. Now, there is more for us to do. We're actually developing more about the preventative care piece to help young people develop the skills of resiliency. Not just with the pandemic, but of course the normal challenges of adolescence, the grades and the exams and the relationships and the family issues and the friends, not to mention the ubiquitous nature of social media and what many neurologists would tell you is literally rewiring young people's brains. It's designed to be addictive. People leave Twitter angrier. People leave Instagram feeling inadequate because they're comparing their real lives to some imaginary one. I think we're going to look back and say there are many benefits to this technology, but there are some real costs too, laid on top of the pandemic and the normal challenges of life. We've got to do more in this area. It's critical for our students. It's personal to me.
Last word.
Yeah, 2 points. I know we're close on time, but I would say 2 points. One, literally our state board has provided funding for this type of training within the community college system, preparing those individuals that are going to work with our youth or work with those coming in our classroom. So I think from the highest level of the community college system, you have that recognition from our state board and recognition from a funding perspective. The other point I would like to make, and while we may take it for granted, President Hahn, Superintendent Truitt, and myself certainly have been working together in a very collaborative manner. I don't think we can minimize that. The example that it sets not only for leadership of our educational entities in the state, but those individuals that are within our individual systems. This has been a trying year. This has been, or a year to, I guess, 18 months, almost 2 years now. But I don't think we need to end without recognizing the importance of that collaboration, that importance of working through some very challenging issues to break down those maybe historical silos between our institutions and realizing the value of collaboration, realizing the value of having civil discourse, but at the same time coming together as the 3 educational institutions in North Carolina. While we are all in the educational sandbox, and I'll tease President Hahn's, about how great our system is, and we're the first, and they're the second best.
You are great.
But at the end of the day, for the benefit of North Carolina and our citizens, and most importantly our students, because this is about student success, we don't need to minimize how we have determined proactively how we're going to engage with each other for the future in North Carolina.
Well, first I want to thank you all for acknowledging these are tough times, and they're tough times not just for the students of your respective systems, but the employees are also struggling. I've taken to saying when people say, "How are you?" Not nearly as good as I think I am, but neither are you. Sometimes people don't appreciate it. I don't understand why, but the reality is we're all under our own set of stress, and so that leads me to the second reason for my appreciation, which is the inspiration, the reality that you all are still waking up every morning, going deep into your own systems, but also working across your systems to try to make the experiences for our students and for the people who work in the systems that much more seamless and welcoming. And welcoming is what we need at this moment. So I want to thank all of you for joining us for this conversation on educational opportunities in North Carolina. I hope that you are as inspired as I am. I hope you recognize that the work that happens while led at the state system rolls out in local communities, and there are local communities all across the state who are taking their cues from the top and collaborating to ensure student success. Thank you. I'm Anita Brown-Graham. This is ncIMPACT.